If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Did you know we have completely ad-free early access to all of our episodes? Well, we do. Not only that, but we have dozens of bonus episodes waiting for you. Head on over to patreon.com/ghosttownpod, and you can check it out for 7 days absolutely free. That's patreon.com/ghosttownpod. A dairy disaster. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
So I want you to take a look at this photo that I sent you and give me your impressions. What are you seeing?
It looks like bricks of gold melting. That's what it looks like. It looks like bricks of gold melting and some fire. Yeah, that's what it looks like, just looking at the photo.
It looks pretty intense,
yes,
I would say. Well, what this photo is documentation of Madison, Wisconsin's Great Butter and Fire Flood. I'm not joking. That's what it is. It's a huge flood, torrential flood, and giant butter and dairy related fire. So in Madison, Wisconsin, in the early 90s, there was an 8-day fire that broke out in this giant dairy storage facility. The result was a nauseating event of pooling dairy, melted cheese, burned cranberries, and a torrential flood of molten dairy products that tormented and traumatized the city for years to come. A meltdown, literally. Only in Wisconsin. Today we're talking about the Great Butter Fire and Flood of 1991. So a very, very, very short economics lesson to begin, get a little context. In the late 70s and early 80s and into the 90s, the U.S. government purchased excess quantities of cheese and butter in efforts to keep dairy prices stable and high. This is called price support in economics. Because the government went hard on the cheese and butter buying, farmers responded by increasing their production of milk and butter fat by 30%, even though really consumer demand was not there. The government was just, of course, buying a lot of dairy. A Wisconsin Daily State Journal article titled "The Butter Cup Runneth Over" from April 1990 reported that 330 million pounds of dairy products were just sitting in warehouses because of price support. Tons of dairy just sitting there. Keep that in mind. So has the scene been set?
Yeah, sounds messy.
It sounds messy. Messy, maybe a little smelly. I don't know. So, on the afternoon of May 3rd, 1991, a fire broke out at Central Storage and Warehouse on Cottage Grove Road, a 500,000 square foot complex that stored 10 to 15 million pounds of government surplus butter. At the time of the fire, the building also stored ocean spray cranberries and, according to one employee, quote, millions and millions of hot dogs. He was...
Did not see that coming.
You didn't see that. You're floored. Yeah. This is where I went to college, by the way. Just a little more context.
I'm surprised you
for
haven't
you.
mentioned it yet.
Yeah, I know.
I was waiting.
I know. I was trying to listen. This is growth. Okay?
Yeah, it is.
This
Yeah.
growth. So that guy was right. Oscar Mayer actually stored 4 million pounds of sausages in the facility as well. The fire began when a forklift battery in the building malfunctioned. Building owner Ken Williams stated that the fire grew so quickly that, quote, the sprinkler systems were not able to even work. As the fire department arrived and began attempting to put out the fire, a thick, fatty pool of dairy in and around the facility grew. Just so you know, nobody's dies in this. Everyone is okay. Fire trucks could not effectively enter and leave the area, nor could fuel trucks to refill the fire trucks' gas tanks. Said acting Madison Fire Department Chief Stephen Davis, quote, it literally was a river of butter. Mechanics traveled through the Butter River on foot with 5 U.S. gallon buckets of diesel fuel to the fire trucks, who were still spraying water at the building. This caused more gooey melted cheese and butter to flow out. So that's what's happening inside of the building. Outside, nearly 3,000 nearby Madison residents were evacuated because firefighters thought the flames might spread. After about 2.5 hours, the fire did spread to a second factory building. 5 hours later, that building collapsed, creating a massive wave of melted butter. Quote, "Once the walls caved in, the butter came out like a river," said Fire Lieutenant Bergen. City engineering crews constructed levees to contain the molten dairy and lard, but it was not easy. Firefighters had to wade through the viscous, slippery pools of butter and cheese that were now in some parts of the factory about 5 feet deep. The melted dairy also made it difficult to use typical equipment. So many mechanics tried to park their equipment far from the flames, trudging upstream through a hot flow of butter to get closer. Firefighter Stephen Davis reported having, quote, "butter in places a guy shouldn't have butter by the end of the night." So it was like a scene from World War II. It was insane. People were trudging through butter, trying to put out this horrific, hot grease fire, fat fire, food fire kind of a thing. It's like a nightmarish food fight. Fire Department Chief Stephen Davis could not believe any of this was happening. He had been with the Madison Fire Department only since 1989, witnessing the catastrophe just a couple years into his career. Later, he would say the more water firefighters used, the more, quote, gooey, gelatinous stuff flowed out of the building. Quote, "In all my training and experience, I'd never come across anything like it. Even the old-timers had never seen anything like it," he said. At one point, while battling the blaze, Davis was sent to the roof of an adjacent building, where he and a few others focused a hose on a fire. They stayed there for about 8 hours, and when they finally came down from the roof at 5:30 a.m. the next day, he and his team attempted to move the hose line further between the two buildings. He stepped off a loading dock into what he thought was solid ground and instantly found himself up to his chest in melted butter. For days, Madison fire crews tried to put out this fire. More people were evacuated. In a panic, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources barricaded Madison's lakes and streams, of which there are many, making dams to ensure the butter flood didn't make contact with area water sources. The DNR worked with crews from Madison's city engineering and public works departments to steer the Butter River into a stormwater discharge area beneath a nearby highway overpass. According to the DNR's site, water had to be pumped out of the discharge area into another stormwater discharge area as the butter was flowing in faster than it could be sent into the sanitary sewer. By the end of May 4th, 1991, more than 3 million gallons of melted butter and fire runoff had been pumped into that stormwater discharge area. But on May 5th, it rained hard, and the rising water levels threatened to send the butter flood over the last dam and into a nearby creek. The DNR had to quickly build more dams because of the rising water levels. By May 6th, the fire was finally under control. Another 11 million gallons had been pumped into the sanitary sewer, but now the butter was cooling and congealing in the drainage area. The U.S. Department of Agriculture brought in salvage contractors to try and remove the solidifying, disgusting food waste. Okay, so how is this great butter flood finding you?
Unique. It's a unique. Yeah, I don't think
Unique.
we've ever talked about anything.
No. Well, we've come close with the molasses flood.
Right, but that was deadly.
That
right?
was deadly.
That was
a
deadly.
different tone.
Yeah.
This, again, not deadly, but still very disgusting.
Yeah.
And the idea of like molasses versus like a cheese or a butter
And this
plus
is also
hot dogs.
the year I graduated high school, so a little
Wow.
more current. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was not in Madison at this point, but it's like this food, this massive, like disgusting waste in food. I mean, it is.
I don't
very
also think
nightmarish.
of butter burn. I mean, I'm sure it can, but it's weird to think of like butter burning because it's, I guess it's all very oily.
Yeah.
and so that makes sense. But I also think it's being like a liquid too. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it must be so hot that it's hard for butter.
Or
to
I mean,
usually
you put butter in
burn.
a pan and it.
Yeah, you just gotta crank it up, and
Yeah.
it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
Environmentally, a lot going on. According to Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources report, the cleanup cost approximately $550,000. The damages included bakery products, hams, and 1,000 pounds of anhydrous ammonia, a colorless, highly pungent and toxic gas commonly used as agricultural fertilizer and refrigerant. All in all, it took about 20 hours to contain the blaze and 8 days to put the fire completely out, thanks in part to plenty of fuel from the insulation around all of the cold storage units and food, of course, lots of food, and, beyond that, 20 million pounds of butter. The fallout after this break.
I love devouring a thriller alone at night, just letting my imagination run wild. Well, I definitely got what I wished for when I dug into Run on Red by Noelle W. Eiley. Oof! The viral suspense thriller that killed it, not literally on Book Talk, is now available to you as a deluxe special edition with gorgeous stenciled edges and a beautiful foiled cover. Talk about a vibe, my friends. Run on Red is a survival thriller about two women driving down a remote country road when they realize they are being followed. They don't have any cell signal and there's no way to escape. What starts as panicked road rage becomes something far more terrifying. As you might imagine, I consume a lot of thriller content on TV, online, and of course, getting cozied up with a good book is maybe my favorite. But sometimes thrillers can be so, corny. Many don't give me that satisfying setup or the scare factor that I crave. But Run on Red isn't like that. It's grounded with a good pace, the kind of scenario that catches my attention and makes me a little nervous, but not nervous enough to stop reading late at night, I love it. If you're a fan of Frida McFadden, Karen Slaughter, or John Mars, this is absolutely your jam. Run on Red by Noelle W. Eiley is available February 24th. So be sure to add it to your online cart, your big ol' reading to-dos, and eventually your favorite book list. So get under a blanket, get comfy, and keep those lights on just in case, because you're going to love Run on Red.
Skincare experts and dermatologists have often touted the benefits of indoor humidity as essential for healthy, glowing skin. But did you know dry air can start to harm your skin in as little as 30 minutes? For years, many people have relied on humidifiers for better skin, sleep, and overall wellness. But traditional models, bulky, mold-prone, and difficult to maintain. That's where Canopy Humidifier comes in. Recommended by leading dermatologists, Canopy is a completely reimagined humidifier designed to elevate any space, offering the ultimate in skincare and wellness benefits. Canopy's clean moisture combats dryness, dullness, and fine lines while strengthening the skin's barrier and boosting the effectiveness of topical skincare products. With its sleek design, Canopy is the cleanest and easiest humidifier on the market. With its unique technology, cleaning is as easy as popping it in the dishwasher. Go to getcanopy.co to save $25 on your Canopy humidifier purchase today with Canopy's filter subscription. Even better, use code PODCAST at checkout to save an additional 10% off your Canopy purchase. Your skin will thank you.
The following few weeks were dedicated to cleaning up, hauling huge piles of meat and rubble to the Dane County landfill, staying ahead of rain and heat that remelted, congealed butter, and gradually pumping that butter out of the stormwater drainage area. So the aftermath was bleak and disgusting and very, very smelly. Ultimately, arson investigators ruled the fire to be an accident that originated near a battery-propelled forklift, but the EPA likened the event to a massive oil spill in scope and severity. 2 weeks after the fire, Ted Amon of the State Department of Natural Resources said efforts to clear the spoiling meat products and keep the melted butter out of nearby waterways were a, quote, success. And I suppose that was true. The DNR monitored the nearby waterways. Very few fish died after the fire, a great thing. Most waterways were protected, another great thing. Most importantly, however, nobody died and nobody was badly injured, also a wonderful thing. But the area was pretty wrecked. The fire and subsequent dairy flood caused major financial losses, including $7.5 million in property damages, that's $17.7 million in 2025, and nearly $1 million in fire control costs, that's $2.36 million in 2025. Yes, I'm doing some inflation math here. The cleanup cost approximately $550,000, that's $1.3 million in 2025, and was mostly paid by the Central Storage and Warehouse Company and a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. In their attempt to clean up all the butter, Madison Fire Department was forced to throw away nearly all of their firefighter gear. Fire Department Chief Stephen Davis said, since he was still, new to the job, that he got stuck with steam cleaning the hoses that weren't completely destroyed by the butter immersion. When people talk about this event, they talk about how insane it was, but they always hit upon the fire and flood's most powerful short-term legacy, the smell. Davis said the smell was rotten, a mixture of burned butter, baked ham, and cranberries. Quote, on a hot, humid day in the summer, you can still once in a while catch the vague stench almost 30 years later, even though the building's been remodeled, he said. We used it as a resting and staging area. The firefighters that would come back there were just covered in the stuff, and it just permeated everything. An informal year-end survey by the Madison Capital Times named the butter fire the most important local news story of 1991. In October 2011, more than 20 years after the flames, the Central Storage and Warehouse Company finished reconstruction on the damaged area, along with adding a 42,000 square foot freezer. David's memories were so vivid even decades after that he admitted that after all that he saw, all that he experienced, he had to reassess his relationship with butter and some other foods. Quote, "It was between that and all the hams that we saw floating in the river of butter," he said. "I didn't eat ham for a little while after that. Now, it's Wisconsin, so a little while, couple days, couple weeks, who's to say?" People on Reddit and Facebook still talk about this event and the impact it had on themselves and Madison as a whole. Here's Marcia Rummel in a Facebook post, quote, "I lived about 3 miles away from Central Storage at the time of the fire, near the Yahara River. In the following days, bits of greasy charred paper wrappers floated down into my yard. I worked right next door at the warehouse behind Culver's on Cottage Grove Road. I took TV news reporter Joel Despain up on our warehouse roof to report on the fire. We were up there for about 2 minutes before some sort of fire marshal yelled at us to get off of there. 10 minutes later, the entire east wall collapsed, sending an avalanche of canned hams onto our lot. I was young and poor at the time and ate the canned ham for quite a few months after the fire. The concrete columns that supported the overpass had melted butter stains going up 6 feet high on them for decades after the fire. But most notably, as we've said, people's collective memories focus on the smell. This is Denise Carnes via Facebook. That smell. Ugh. For months afterwards during the summer, the entire area smelled like rancid milk. Said Aaron May 16, "You could feel the heat of the fire from Highway 51, and the black smoke was so thick. I always thought the smell from Oscar Mayer across the highway was raunchy, but that burning dairy smell, disgusting." Eastside Wisconsin on Reddit, "I will never forget that smell. It was in the air for months. I went to middle school about a mile from the fire, and by the start of the school year, the smell of burnt, spoiled dairy was everywhere still." And that is the story of Madison's Great Butter Fire.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.